Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far, with Atlanta FaZe successfully breaking their second place curse at Major 4, but are coming third rather than the first they were looking for. Could this be the start of the downturn for this FaZe team? If they fail to win the World Championship with the success they have had previously, what does it mean for the future of this FaZe roster? Could they blow it up very shortly into Modern Warfare 2022 if things continue to go south? Very much intrigued your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Really helps the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Even the official Call of Duty Twitter was tweeting this out. Crimsix and Crim7 showing up to the World Championship. Right, this would be, honestly, if they do this, that would be so good. Like, we know that Crimsix is going to pay for Crim7 to go out there if he can't get his own tickets funded and stuff. So thought that was absolutely fantastic stuff. Now, first of all, wanted to mention this real quick because the whole Activision buyout was a big talking point of a few months ago. Now, look, this is going to take a long time to go through, but apparently if there's no further effectively complaints from the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, I'm guessing, then the deal will be approved in the US by mid-August, right? Which is a pretty big deal if that does happen about this time next month, that is officially happening, because, like, in the long term, we feel like, okay, Activision Blizzard, are they just trying to milk Call of Duty for everything it's worth? Will Microsoft have a different idea as to how they want to run Call of Duty and what it could be from a competitive perspective? Yes, Halo hasn't had the best support the last few months, but in terms of the way the game was released, like, I think they did a much better job than Call of Duty has the last few years. So that probably is going to happen, at least on current evidence, which is good news. And I wanted to look at this as well. 4 seasons, of course, have come to a close. Mutineers, Minnesota Rokkr, Paris Legion, and the Los Angeles Guerrillas. These are their earnings this year. So Mutineers managed to actually make $92,500, mostly from Major 2 where they came 4th, and also the last couple of majors they somehow squeaked out a top 6, despite arguably, you know, I'm not really sure they're a top 6 team to be honest, but somehow they managed to make it happen. Definitely one of the worst 4 teams in the league, I think, right now. Just looking at the 8 teams that made champs were the best 8 teams in the game, and the teams deserving of making it there, in my opinion at least. Los Angeles Guerrillas, they failed to make it. Look at this, right? They made this season $210,000. It was 0, 0, 0, 0, 10,000, and then 200k for winning Major 2. So that was honestly ridiculous. Now, this is pretty funny. So Paris Legion made $22,500 this season. They came top 8 at Major 1. They came top 8 also at the Prime Classic, but somehow that netted them a little bit more money at $12,500 based on, I guess, the way the price formatting was working there. And Minnesota Rokkr actually only made 20k. Now, this is 20k excluding the bounty matches. I'm pretty sure they did win 2 bounty games. Like, they won the one against Paris, but who really cares about that? Nobody remembers those. Like, I'm more interested in the actual placements, right? But in terms of placement earnings, Minnesota made less money than Paris did. They came 8th, 12th, 12th, 12th at the last kind of mini majors here. Only made 20k. Like, I mean, yeah, Minnesota Rokkr, man, when they formed this team, it's like the start of last season, I was saying that this team wasn't particularly good. Then they form a similar team this season. I'm like, it's still not particularly good. Yes, they made a few swaps and some changes, but I mean, yeah, they just didn't really work it out right. They've got to blow this up. I don't know what's going to happen to Attach. He's probably just going to try and leave if he can, to be honest. And if he does stay, I'm sure he probably wants an entirely different team around him. But yeah, Minnesota Rokkr, just the fact that they come out of this season making less money from placements than Paris Legion just is evidence that they've just completely got to blow this one up. But definitely intrigued your thoughts on what they should do in the comments below. I'm sure we'll talk about some of these topics over the coming days. Now, Clayster, he's getting ready to go while flying back today. Of course, the last chance qualifier in the Challenger side is coming up relatively soon. Clayster needs to win that if he wants to go to the World Championship. But speaking of Clayster, I put together this last night, and in fairness, the last time I did this, it was for the Los Angeles Thieves, and I said, get rid of the SMGs, bring in like a Hydra and CleanX, bring in Scrappy there and keep Octane. And of course, after doing that, they immediately won the next event. So maybe Boston Breach with their current team are going to win the World Championship on this evidence. But this is a kind of a concept I put together here, because I feel like they really should be building around Vivid and Nero as their SMG duo next season. Like, I think that Temp would probably be an upgrade over TJ, and also Temp can very consistently, he can run an AR or an SMG depending, and then Clayster is the main AR. Like, I kind of felt bad for Zeddy really doing this, but I really do think that Clayster would get more out of this team in terms of results than Methods would. I think Methods is a great player, but I just think that Clayster, even though individually they might be on a kind of similar level at times, I think Clayster on this team has more upside potential, more potential to actually get the best results out of this team. Even though the chemistry between him and Temp and the rest of the guys might not work out too great, I think it's worth the risk going for a team like this, because the upside I think is greater. Now, interestingly enough, actually, Clayster came back in the reply here and said, you know, like kind of laughing along, hey guys, Temp, Vivid, Nero, let's sort something out for next year. And then Methods replies with this one, like, here we go again, right? So like, look, we'll see if anything like this happens. I think that they might well build around Methods because he's been a kind of staple piece of their brand. But obviously they did a pretty good job building this team this season. They've found a good couple of pieces. Some people would say, okay, just minus TJ plus Temp could be a good idea. And who knows, maybe they go into the World Championships with Methods and TJ and they just win it anyway. Because obviously, if you look at the 3 teams that are attending champs that haven't won an event yet, it is London Royal Ravens, Atlanta FaZe, and the Boston Breach. Maybe one of those 3 teams will walk away with a victory. But definitely intrigued to your thoughts on that one. Now let's talk FaZe then, right? So FaZe will play first round of the World Championship up against the New York Subliners. Far from an easy game. They're peaking at the right time as breaking point. Say 14-4 in hardpoint during Major 4. That's pretty incredible. And they play FaZe round 1. I'm sure they're going to be relishing this opportunity, right? Because they know if they can beat FaZe round 1, like they have so much confidence, I'm sure they can go through and win the rest of this tournament. Like, they're in a perfect position, really. They've done exactly what they needed to do. They've got a couple of weeks now. Everyone's going to be looking at Thieves VOD. That's maybe some slight advantage here, is that, like, I'm sure all the other teams are going to be looking at Los Angeles Thieves, saying, okay, what do they do? What's their good map pool? Like, what can we learn from this? And New York Subliners, they might kind of get away scot-free a little bit in terms of teams are saying, okay, New York are good, but, you know, whatever. Thieves are the real threat here at champs. Maybe New York are the serious threat. Now, Atlanta FaZe, to me, give an incredibly interesting discussion to be had around this team and what the future of it actually is. We know that all teams eventually come to an end. Even great dynasties will eventually blow up and go their separate ways. Now, look, FaZe are still at the #1 team in the game, at least in terms of standings, right? They haven't won an event this year. They're second, third, or like a second, third, actually, I guess. And like excluding the, I think the Pro-Am and also the kickoffs didn't really have the greatest results. But at official majors, they've been very consistent in their placings. They haven't won anything yet, though, and they've only got one more chance to do it. And it does seem like every tournament they lose to the winners, right? Which obviously doesn't sound too bad, but like they've lost to now 4 different winners of these tournaments, which just kind of show when they get to when they play the really hot team that has just turned up for that weekend, they just don't seem to have quite enough to actually get over the line. Like their control fell short against Thieves, like their control has generally been good, but all of their hardpoint and their search and destroy and their map pool at times, the fact that they don't really like to play Berlin hardpoint, they'll often prefer to go to a Tuscan, even though a lot of teams like Tuscan. Pretty sure they even lost to Paris on Tuscan, right? I'm pretty sure that was the case. So like they've got to think about their map pool, and their search and destroy as well has been far from consistent. Yes, they beat Optic pretty handily in all the respawns, but you know, that's not really the FaZe way of doing it without their search and destroy being so good. So I think they go into champs, as we looked at earlier today, maybe as the marginal favourites still, because they're the #1 team and they, you know, theoretically should be favourites against New York and then a next round matchup as well. So, you know, who knows how things go. And of course, they still are the reigning world champions from last season with this roster of 4. But the fact that they dominated last season so profoundly, and then they come into this season and now haven't won an event and maybe won't win an event for this year, what does that mean for the potential future of this roster, right? Because the thing is that we tend to find is that when teams come through and they dominate Call of Duty for a period of time, win several events in a row, and then they fall off to a certain degree, it's very difficult internally for the team culture and chemistry to actually handle that, right? If you've been used to winning everything, you're going to every event, you're making the finals or you're winning it. FaZe just won everything last year. I think they won 4 out of the 6 events last season without really too much difficulty. They come in this year and they're struggling to even make grand finals. When they're there, they lose to everyone they play. Like, that must be taking a toll internally on the chemistry, right? They must be feeling frustrated with the team or with each other, because when you're used to winning everything and now you're not, like, it's very difficult to adapt to that. And we see generally with many teams throughout COD history that winning was often the thing that kept teams together. And still, these guys obviously do have great chemistry, but there are many examples of teams that won events and then fall off over the coming months and years and then decide to blow it up.
Simp, I think, has went from performing really well online to having those maps and series where he just wasn't really playing too good at the major. And I don't know, there's just something about this team where I'm not going to say they've fallen off, because that's obviously not true. These guys are still dominant, but they just don't look the same, man. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the game. I don't know if maybe they're going through some internal problems, but I don't know. They just don't look the same to me anymore. And well, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe going into the next season, if these guys actually put some credence into Vanguard, that they might end up like, I don't know, man. That's got to put some like stress on your team, like when you're playing that bad, like if for their standards.
They definitely are due for a chip. And I think they're going to be coming out swinging. So I would not want to play that Atlanta FaZe team. And if they do win the ring, they're not going to care about anything else that happened on this year either. Right?
I mean, I'm just kind of worried for them. Like, if they don't win the ring, like, when are they going to start pointing fingers, right? Like,
I agree with that too.
It's kind of an inevitable that like all good things come to an end. And for this team, I think looking forward into the future, like I said, if they do put any sort of like, you know, credence into the game and not just be like, oh, it's Vanguard, who cares? Which is like the thing I would have done this game. But like, honestly, when do you think that would happen? Who knows? But
so I think Parasite might have hit a point on the head here, right? And yes, look, this is Call of Duty Vanguard. It's not a traditional Call of Duty game that we have seen. Last year we see the dominance that this FaZe clan team had back in Cold War. This year a rather different story. Second, you know, 8th of the Prime Classic, 8th of the Kickoff Classic, second, third, like a good results of the major events, but nothing absolutely spectacular like we were seeing last time around. Of course, they won the World Championship in 2021. If they win win this World Championship? Does it kind of cement their dynasty? I suppose it probably has to if you win 2 World Championships in 2 years, but at the same time, they haven't really dominated this season. Like, they've been very good, but they haven't really been able to get over the line at the major, right? So that's the thing. This team's been around 2 seasons now. Let's say they don't win the World Championship. What does that mean for their roster next year? I can't see them blowing it up. I'm sure that this team thinks, look, it was Vanguards, like, whatever. We'll just go again next season. And also the thing is, like, what do you really change about this team? Cellium is the #1 guy. He's the MVP of this year. aBeZy and Simp, like, they're not going to split up anytime soon. So really the only man you can change out is Arcitys. And is there an option there, like, to actually upgrade Arcitys? Maybe. But, like, they've got the chemistry with him. They've won World Championships with him before. Like, I'm sure they don't want to do that, even though individually, he hasn't been that good this year, in fairness. And, like, aBeZy also, like, hasn't been that good. But he still has had his great series lately, and him and Simp, I'm sure, are going to keep going for a little bit longer. But, like, as Arcitys are saying, they've got to kind of find a good groove between Hardpoint and Search and Destroy. And I think if they don't win the World Championship, let's say they come top 3, even top 4, top 2 at Champs, I don't really think it's going to affect their team for next season. But I think next season then really does become a make or break, right? They have to start next season out well, because these guys can't go too long without winning an event. If they go this whole year without winning anything, and then they start off next season and, like, lose the first couple of events, they might think, look, this team's just had it, right? Like, and even mentally, as kind of Parasite is getting at, like, losing for so long and not being able to win anything makes them think that maybe they've lost their magic with this team. Maybe, like, their time has come to blow it up and decide to go a different route, right? So intrigued your thoughts on that, because I just really don't think, regardless of what happens at Champs, I don't think they're going to blow it up. And if they win, of course, they're 100% going to stay for next season, and probably that does extend the lifespan of this team a bit longer. But I mean, the longest lifespan we've really seen of a team in Call of Duty is, I mean, like, I guess the Optic Dynasty was around for like 3 or so years, really. You're thinking during the Jetpack era, then going into World War II, and then it kind of blew up during that season. So maybe this team has another year, 2 years in it, but like eventually it's going to break up, right? And like that's just how things go. And maybe it's going to be at the midpoint of next season, right? I think they'll for sure keep this roster. But if things don't go so well next year and Arcitys maybe continues to underperform, like I wouldn't rule out the possibility that they look at another option, right? Because, you know, some people even talked about the likes of Attach, right? Attach is out there potentially. Like, could he step into this team as kind of the AR? Would that work out for them? Or as kind of a flex role alongside Cellium? I'm not sure that's the best option. I still feel like this team has the best chance of winning with Arcitys there. And probably on an individual level, these players just haven't been as good as last year, right? It's not like they deserve to win necessarily when their players aren't playing at that caliber. And it's not so easy to find other options for Arcitys that actually are like a clear upgrade by any means. You don't know what next year's going to be like. If they're very good at Modern Warfare 2022, then like, you know, obviously it's potentially a 2-year cycle. They might very much like that. But at the same time, if they don't like the game and they're getting frustrated, then maybe they will need a different team environment, right? It's an interesting one to just consider here real quick. I just wanted to look at the overall season for FaZe, actually. Just looking at some of their numbers here. Cell, I mean, just looking at hardpoint, but it's the same story across all the modes, really. Cell has a 1.3 in hardpoint. aBeZy, Arcitys, probably been the 2 players that have underperformed the most so far this year. Simp's been very solid again across the game modes, as you would expect, although with a few stinkers here or there in most recently at Major 4. But look, if we look at the overall standings, they're still number 1, right? They're still sitting here 28 in 13 series. Not the actual highest map win percentage in the game. Optics still have that one. But like, they won this season pretty comfortably in terms of the standings. And therefore, you might think, okay, there's no way they blow it up. But the fact of the matter is that when teams have had so much dominance and then they don't have that dominance anymore, it does take a toll internally and frustrations do begin to rise and chemistry can break down between teammates and someone makes a mistake again and you lose another tournament and now like frustrations are starting to linger there and all of a sudden it just takes one bad performance or like a bad start to next season and then, you know, something cracks and they decide to go their separate ways. It's a possibility. I wouldn't say it's overwhelmingly likely, but I'm not sure you can completely rule it out. Very much intrigued to your thoughts on all this stuff in the comment section below. Looking at Arcitys and Clayster back in the day, having a good time teabagging people, because apparently this is a big talking point in esports lately that you're not allowed to teabag someone anymore because you get banned or it's disrespectful or something. So I don't know, world's gone soft to be honest, but very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time.